The stars burned with the light of 1,000 weapons. Ships filled the black sky above the planet Keros IV, and the space between them glowed with plasma fire. The Velen fleet, with their curved silver ships, fired streams of blue energy at the enemy. The Orin Collective answered with their own weapons, sending waves of green plasma across the void. This battle had lasted 6 days. On the bridge of his command vessel, Overseer Kel watched the fighting through tired eyes. His insect-like body was old now, his shell cracked in places from age. He had commanded the Velen military for 40 years. His father had commanded before him, and his father before that. The war was older than memory. Status report, Kel said, his voice clicking in the way of his people. Their shields hold, replied his tactical officer. As they always do. Kel made a sound of disgust. It was the same answer he received every day. The Orin shields stopped their plasma. Their shields stopped the Orin plasma. Ships fired at each other for hours, for days, and nothing happened. The energy simply absorbed into the barriers and disappeared. On the other side of the battle, High Marshal Wrath stood in his own command center. He was Orin, a tall reptilian creature with green scales and eyes like burning coal. His claws tapped against his command chair as he watched the same useless exchange of fire. "How much energy have we spent?" he asked. 40% of our reserves, High Marshal." Wrath closed his eyes. They would need to retreat soon to recharge their weapons and shields. The Velen would do the same. Then, in a few weeks, they would meet again and repeat this dance of fire and failure. 800 years. The war had lasted 800 years. Nobody remembered why it started. The records were lost. The reasons were forgotten. Now they simply fought because they had always fought. Peace was a word neither side believed in anymore. "Pull back the fleet," Wrath ordered. "We will try again next month." Far from the battle, hidden in the shadow of a small moon, a ship watched. It was different from anything in this part of the galaxy. It had no curves, no elegant lines. It was blocky and simple, made of dark metal that seemed to swallow light. On its side, painted in white letters, was a name. The hammer Captain Taiho stood on the bridge, his hands behind his back. He was human, 43 years old, with gray starting to show in his black hair. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They had traveled very far to reach this place, and what they found amazed them. "Ah, sir," said Lieutenant Hannah from her tactical station. She was young, barely 30, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The alien fleets are retreating, both of them." "Yes, sir. They appear to be withdrawing in opposite directions." Taiho nodded slowly. 6 days of fighting and nobody won? Interesting. From the science station, Dr. Wujin looked up from his screens. He was a thin man with glasses and the look of someone who spent more time with books than with people. "Captain, I have analyzed their weapons and defenses. Their technology is far beyond ours in many ways. Their energy systems, their faster-than-light travel, their computing power, all of it is centuries ahead of Earth. But," Taiho asked, hearing the word, even though Wujin had not said it. "But their shields are designed only for energy weapons. They block plasma, lasers, directed heat. Everything they fire at each other is some form of energy projection." Wujin pushed his glasses up his nose. "They have never considered kinetic options." Sergeant Minji stepped forward from her position near the door. She was the ship's combat leader, a woman built like a fighter with short hair and scars on her hands. "Kinetic options? You mean bullets? Missiles? Things that actually hit?" "Exactly," Wujin said. "Their shields would not stop a simple metal projectile. They were never designed to. These aliens abandoned physical weapons thousands of years ago. They considered them primitive." "Silence!" fell on the bridge. Everyone understood what this meant. Lieutenant Hannah spoke first. "We came here looking for trade. For allies. We found a war that nobody can win. A war that has killed billions," Taiho added. "According to the broadcasts we intercepted, entire planets have been destroyed. Species that lived on contested worlds are extinct. And for what? Neither side even remembers the reason." Through the windows of the bridge, they could see the distant glow of the alien fleets moving away from each other. Tomorrow, there would be more posturing, more threats. more useless fire. And next month, or next year, they would fight again, and nothing would change. We could end it, Minji said quietly. We have what they don't: steel, gunpowder, tungsten rounds. Our weapons would pass through their shields like they were not there. Should we? Wu Jin asked. Is it our place to interfere in a war that has nothing to do with us? Taiho did not answer immediately. He watched the stars and thought about Earth. Humanity had its own history of endless wars. He remembered the stories his grandmother told him about the conflicts of the past century. Millions dead over borders, over resources, over pride. It took near extinction to teach humans the cost of forever fighting. These aliens had not learned that lesson yet. Maybe they never would. Send a message to Earth, Taiho finally said. Tell Admiral Sianu what we have found. Two empires locked in eternal war, bleeding themselves dry while the galaxy watches. Tell him we may have an opportunity. An opportunity for what, sir? Hannah asked. Taiho turned to face his crew. His expression was calm, but his eyes were hard. An opportunity to do what nobody else has done for 800 years. An opportunity to end this. For better or worse, humanity has arrived. And we brought something these aliens forgot existed. He looked down at his hand, at the simple steel ring on his finger. It was made of iron and carbon, basic, primitive, real. We brought steel. The hammer powered up its engines and slipped deeper into the shadows. Behind them, the aliens continued their ancient dance of war. Unaware that everything was about to change, the station floated in neutral space, far from the territory of either empire. It was old and worn, built by a species called the Sylph, who had tried to make peace long ago. They had failed. Now only a few of them remained, tired observers of a war they could not stop. Elder Tova waited in the meeting chamber. She was Sylph, a tall and thin creature with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed too large for her face. Her people had once been powerful. Now they were dying, their numbers too few to matter. But they still held this station. They still tried to talk of peace. The door opened and Captain Taiho entered with his officers. Tova studied them carefully. She had seen many species in her long life, but never humans. They were strange to her. Soft bodies with no shells or scales, small eyes, flat faces. They looked fragile, but there was something in the way they moved. A confidence that she had not seen in a long time. Welcome to Neutral Point Station, Tova said, her voice like wind through leaves. I am Elder Tova. I speak for what remains of the Sylph Council. Thank you for receiving us, Taiho replied. I am Captain Taiho of Earth. These are my officers. Lieutenant Hannah, Dr. Wu Jin, and Sergeant Minji. Tova gestured for them to sit. We received your message. You wish to learn about the war between the Velen and the Orin? May I ask why? Because we think we can end it. Tova was silent for a long moment. Then she made a sound that might have been laughter, though there was no joy in it. Many have said those words. All have failed. The Sylph tried for 200 years to bring peace. We spent our wealth, our influence, our very future on the effort. It cost us everything. What happened? Dr. Wujin asked. Both sides ignored us. They were too proud to accept mediation from a neutral party. Too proud to admit they no longer remembered why they were fighting. Tova's large eyes grew sad. Pride is a terrible thing. It burns longer than any star. Lieutenant Hannah leaned forward. Tell us about their weapons. Their defenses. We need to understand how they fight. Tova explained everything. The Velen and Orin had developed along parallel paths. Both discovered plasma technology around the same time. Both built shields to counter plasma weapons. Over the centuries, they improved their attacks and their defenses in equal measure. Every new weapon was matched by a new shield. Every advance was canceled out. Your battles last for days, Tova said. Ships fire at each other until their energy is empty. Then they retreat, recharge, and do it again. Ground battles are worse. Soldiers shoot each other until their personal shields fail. Then they fight with claws and blades. It is brutal and slow and pointless. Sergeant Minji shook her head. They have no projectile weapons? Nothing physical? They abandoned such things long ago. They considered them primitive, inefficient. Why throw a rock when you can throw lightning? Tova paused. Your people still use physical weapons? We use both, Minji said. But our best weapons are kinetic. Bullets, missiles, shells, things that move fast and hit hard. Tova's eyes widened slightly. Their shields would not stop such things. The barriers are designed to absorb energy, not mass. We know, Taiho said simply. The next day, Lieutenant Hannah and Sergeant Minji traveled to a contested moon to observe a ground battle. They wore simple disguises and carried recording equip. Meant what they saw would stay with them forever. The moon was gray and lifeless. Two armies faced each other across a rocky plain. The Velen were insect-like, with hard shells and many limbs. The Orin were reptilian, tall and strong with thick scales. Both sides wore armor that glowed with shield energy. The battle began with a roar of plasma fire. Hundreds of weapons discharged at once. The air burned with blue and green light, and nothing happened. The plasma splashed against shields and disappeared. The soldiers kept firing, kept draining their power cells, kept accomplishing nothing. This went on for hours. Hannah and Mingi watched from a hidden position. They saw soldiers collapse from exhaustion. They saw others fall when their shields finally flickered and failed. Then the real killing began. Without their barriers, the aliens used blades and claws. They tore at each other like animals. The ground became wet with blood of two colors. This is insane, Hannah whispered. This is all they know, Minji replied. They have fought this way for 800 years. They have forgotten there is any other way. When the battle ended, both sides retreated. The ground was covered with bodies. Neither army had gained anything. Tomorrow, they would return and do it again. Later, back on the station, Minji found a piece of Orin armor. She placed it on a table in the workshop and picked up a human rifle. It was a simple weapon, nothing compared to alien plasma technology. Just metal, springs, and gunpowder. She fired 3 rounds. The bullets punched through the armor like it was paper. The energy shield activated, but the rounds passed through without even slowing down. 3 holes appeared in the metal behind the shield. Clean, perfect, deadly. Dr. Wujin examined the damage. The shield is designed to counter energy frequency weapons. It cannot even detect physical projectiles. As far as the system knows, those bullets do not exist. Captain Taiho looked at the destroyed armor for a long time. Then he looked at his crew. Request a meeting with both sides, he said. It is time they learned that their shields are useless. They will not believe us, Hannah said. Then we will show them. Taiho picked up one of the spent bullet casings. It was small and simple, made of brass and steel. Such a tiny thing. Such a deadly thing. 800 years of war, and nobody thought to throw a rock. Humanity is going to change that. Outside the station, the stars continued to burn with the light of distant battles. But the light was about to change. The demonstration chamber was large and cold. It was built for testing weapons. Thick walls that could absorb plasma fire and floors that could be replaced when they melted. Today it would see something different. On one side of the room stood Overseer Kell and his Velen guards. Their shells clicked with impatience. They had come only because the Sylph had insisted, and because curiosity still lived in their ancient hearts. On the other side stood High Marshal Wrath and his Orin soldiers. Their scales were dull with age and war. They stared at the Velen with hatred born from centuries of death. Between them stood the humans. Captain Taiho was calm. Lieutenant Hannah stood beside him, a rifle in her hands. Dr. Wujin held a small computer. Sergeant Mingi watched the aliens with careful eyes. Thank you for coming, Taiho said. His voice was clear and steady. I know neither of you trusts the other. I know you do not trust us. But what we are about to show you will change everything. Overseer Kell made a clicking sound of amusement. You are very confident for such a young species. We received your message claiming you could end our war. We came to see this joke for ourselves. High Marshal Wrath nodded, the only time he had ever agreed with a Velen. My scientists examined your ship. You have no energy weapons. Your hull is made of simple metal. Your engines use chemical fuel. You are primitive, as Taiho agreed. We are. This surprised both leaders. They had expected arguments, not agreement. Humanity is young, Taiho continued. We discovered space travel only 200 years ago. Your civilizations were building starships when we were still living in caves. In every way that matters, you are more advanced than us. And why should we listen to you? Kel asked. Because sometimes the student sees what the master cannot. Taiho nodded to Lieutenant Hannah. Show them. Hannah stepped forward. In the center of the chamber, a target had been set up. It was a training dummy wearing full Velen combat armor. The armor was the best their technology could produce. Its shield glowed with power, strong enough to stop any plasma weapon in the galaxy. Hannah raised her rifle. It was not impressive. It was made of black metal and wood. It had no glowing parts, no power cells, no visible technology. Kel laughed, a strange clicking sound. You mean to attack our armor with that? It looks like something from a museum. It is, Hannah said. This design is over 300 years old. We call it a rifle. It uses a small explosion to push a piece of metal at very high speed. Combustion? Wrath said with disgust. You fight with fire and metal? We stopped using such things before your species discovered language. I know, Hannah said. Then she pulled the trigger. The sound was enormous. Not the hiss of plasma or the whine of energy. It was a bang, loud and sharp, like thunder. The aliens flinched. They had never heard anything like it. The bullet crossed the room in less than a heartbeat. It hit the shield. It passed through the shield. It hit the armor beneath. It punched through the crystalline plates like they were made of water. It exploded out the back of the dummy and buried itself in the far wall. Silence filled the chamber. Hannah fired twice more. 2 more holes appeared in the armor. 2 more bullets passed through the strongest. Shield in the galaxy without even slowing down. Overseer Kel stared at the destroyed target. His whole body was still. His guards had stopped breathing. High Marshal Wrath's claws had extended without his control. The scales on his neck had risen. He looked at the human weapon with the eyes of someone seeing death for the first time. How? Kel whispered. Dr. Wujan stepped forward with his computer. Your shields are designed to absorb and redirect energy. They work against plasma, lasers, radiation, all forms of directed energy. But they were never designed to stop physical objects. He showed them the data. A bullet is not energy. It is mass. Metal moving at high velocity. Your shields do not even recognize it as a threat. Impossible, Wrath said, but his voice was weak. It is simple, Wujin replied. So simple that you forgot it existed. Your ancestors abandoned kinetic weapons because energy weapons were more powerful against unshielded targets. But then you developed shields that stopped energy, and you never looked back. You never considered that someone might throw a rock instead of a lightning bolt. Captain Taiho let the silence stretch. Then he spoke. For 800 years you have fought. Billions have died. Worlds have burned. And neither side has won because neither side could get past the other's shields. He gestured to the destroyed armor. Those shields mean nothing against steel. You could arm either side, Kel said slowly. His voice was different now. The arrogance was gone. Whoever you give these weapons to would win the war in weeks. We could, Taiho agreed. But that is not what we want. Then what do you want? Wrath demanded. Peace. Both aliens looked at him like he was insane. We do not want either side to win, Taiho said. We want both sides to stop fighting. We want the war to end. Humanity will not give these weapons to either empire. Instead, we offer a third choice. Lay down your arms. Accept peace. Trade with each other instead of killing each other. Grow instead of dying. Kel's shell clicked with anger. You expect us to surrender? To accept help from primitives? I expect nothing, Taiho said calmly. But I am offering you a chance. The only chance you will ever get. Take it or leave it. The choice is yours. Both delegations left in silence. The demonstration was over. But in the days that followed, neither Overseer Kell nor High Marshal Wrath could forget the sound of thunder and the sight of their perfect shields failing. In a dark room on an Oran warship, a general made a secret call. He wanted to buy human weapons. He did not care about peace. He only cared about winning. The war was about to change. The first massacre happened. 3 weeks after the demonstration, an Oran fleet attacked a Velen supply convoy near the border. It should have been another pointless exchange of plasma fire. It should have ended in stalemate, like every other battle for 800 years. But this time was different. The Oran ships opened fire with their normal weapons. The Velen raised their shields. Everything was the same as it had always been. Then the Oran launched something new. Small metal cylinders flew through space at incredible speed. They were not powered by energy. They were pushed by simple explosions, just like human bullets but much larger. The projectiles passed through the Velen shields. They struck the holes beneath. They tore through metal and crystal like paper. In minutes, half the Velen convoy was dead. Ships broke apart in silence. Bodies floated in the void. The survivors ran, their shields useless against this new horror. Word spread quickly. The Oran had obtained human weapons. They had bought them in secret, paying with resources and technology. Now they had the power to end the war. On the Velen homeworld, Overseer Kell received the news with cold fury. His officers demanded action. His people screamed for revenge. But Kell was old and wise, and he understood what this meant. Contact the humans, he ordered. We will pay whatever they want. On Earth, Admiral Sianu watched the reports from his command center. He was an older man with a face that showed no emotion. Behind him, screens displayed the growing chaos in alien space. Ships burning. Planets falling. The stalemate was broken. Both sides are offering us everything, said his aide. Technology, resources, territory, they are desperate. Of course they are, Sianu replied. For the first time in their history, they can actually lose. What should we do, Admiral? Sianu thought for a long moment. He thought about humanity's past. The world wars. The nuclear standoffs. The years of blood and fire before people finally learned that some wars could never be won. These aliens had not learned that lesson. Maybe they needed help. Sell to both sides, he said finally. Weapons, training, supplies. Take everything they offer, sir. That will make the war worse. Yes, it will. Sianu turned to face his aide. His eyes were hard. And when they are tired of dying, when they have seen what real war looks like, they will beg us for peace. Then we will give it to them. On our terms? The war accelerated beyond anything either empire had seen before. Sergeant Minji was assigned to train Oran soldiers. She stood before a group of their warriors on a military base, showing them how to use rifles. They learned quickly. Their hands were strong enough to handle the recoil. Their eyes were sharp enough to aim. But they were confused by the tactics. Why do we hide behind walls? One of them asked. Our shields protect us. Your shields are worthless now, Minji said bluntly. When everyone has kinetic weapons, shields mean nothing. You need cover. Real cover. Stone and metal that can stop a bullet. She watched them struggle with ideas that human children learned in games. Take cover. Aim carefully. Reload quickly. Move from position to position. These aliens had spent centuries standing in the open, trusting their barriers. Now, they had to learn a new way of war. On the Velen side, Dr. Waljan worked with their engineers. He showed them how to forge steel, how to make armor that could stop bullets. They were brilliant scientists, but they had never worked with simple metals. Their entire civilization was built on crystal and energy. This is heavy, one Velen engineer complained, holding a plate of steel. Heavy is good, Wujin explained. Heavy stops bullets. Light things break. The Velen learned. They were fast learners. Soon they were producing their own ammunition, their own guns, their own protective gear. The balance was shifting again. Captain Taiho watched it all from the hammer, which now led a small fleet of human warships. He received reports every day. Battles won and lost. Planets changing hands. Civilian casualties mounting into the millions. "We made this worse," Lieutenant Hannah said one evening. "We gave them new ways to kill each other." "Yes," Taiho agreed. Was it the right thing to do? Taiho did not answer for a long time. He watched the stars through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, people were dying because of weapons he had introduced. "I do not know if it was right," he finally said, "but it was necessary. The old war would have lasted forever. Both sides were too proud to surrender, too equal to win. Now that balance is gone, now they can actually hurt each other. And when the pain becomes too much, they will stop. They will destroy each other completely. That is possible too." Taiho turned to face her. "But I believe they will choose to live. Most species do, when death becomes real." A month later, both empires were exhausted. The Orin had taken 3 Velen worlds. The Velen had destroyed 2 Orin fleets. Billions were dead. Resources were gone. Both sides had fought harder in weeks than they had in centuries, and still neither side was winning. Captain Taiho broadcast a message across all channels. His face appeared on screens throughout both empires. "This is Captain Taiho of Earth's United Space Command. For weeks you have used our weapons to kill each other. You have learned that shields do not protect you anymore. You have learned that real war has real consequences." He paused. Behind him, the view screen showed rows of human warships. Their hulls were thick with steel armor. Their weapons were railguns and missile batteries. "Now hear this. Humanity is not a merchant. We are not here to sell weapons forever. We are here to end this war. You will both stand down. You will accept peace. Or you will face an enemy that neither of you can defeat." The message ended. Across the galaxy, 2 empires stared at their screens in shock. The primitives were giving them an ultimatum. The humans were threatening them both, and neither the Velen nor the Orin could say they were bluffing. 3 months after the ultimatum, the war ended. Not with a great battle, not with a final victory. It ended with silence. The Treaty of Karos was signed aboard the Hammer. The meeting room was plain and simple, like everything human. Metal walls, bright lights, a long table with chairs on both sides, no decorations, no symbols, just a place for business. Overseer Kell entered from the left. His shell was cracked in new places now. The war's final months had aged him decades. Behind him came the guards, their weapons checked at the door. They looked lost without their plasma rifles. High Marshal Wrath entered from the right. His scales had lost their shine. One of his eyes was covered with a patch, a wound from a battle last month. His guards followed, equally disarmed. They stared at the Velen with old hatred, but they were too tired to act on it. Captain Taiho sat at the head of the table. Lieutenant Hannah stood behind him. Dr. Wu Jin and Sergeant Mingy watched from the corners. The humans were calm. They had seen this before. Their own history was full of meetings like this, enemies forced to sit together after too much blood. "Thank you for coming," Taiho said. "Please sit." Neither Kell nor Wrath looked at each other. They sat on opposite sides of the table, as far apart as possible. The distance between them was filled with 800 years of death. "The terms are simple," Taiho continued. He placed a document on the table. "Both empires will reduce their fleets to defensive levels only. Human peacekeepers will patrol the contested systems. Trade routes will be opened between your territories. And the war will end. And if we refuse?" Wrath asked. His voice was rough. "Then humanity will enforce peace ourselves." Taiho's voice did not change. "Our fleet is small, but our weapons work against both of you. We will destroy any ship that attacks another. We will blockade any world that builds war vessels. We will do whatever is necessary." Kell made a bitter clicking sound. "You would become our masters. We would trade one enemy for a new one." No, Taiho said. "We would become your neighbors." And neighbors do not let each other burn down the whole street. He leaned forward. 800 years ago, your ancestors made a choice. They chose war. Every generation since then has paid for that choice. How many more generations must die before someone chooses differently? The room was silent. Both leaders stared at the document. Their hands did not move. I have grandchildren, Wrath said quietly. It was the first personal thing he had ever said in front of a Velen. 2 of them, young. They have never known anything but war. They think battle is normal. They think death is natural. He looked up at Taiho. I do not want them to grow old in a galaxy of fire. Kel was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he spoke. My eldest son died 6 weeks ago. He was commanding a defense station when your weapons hit it. He looked at Wrath. Your weapons? Orin weapons. Human weapons. It does not matter anymore. He is dead. And I am tired of burying my children. But this silence was different. It was not the silence of hatred. It was the silence of exhaustion. The silence of 2 old soldiers who had finally run out of fight. Wrath picked up the document. He read it slowly. Then he took a pen and signed his name. His hand shook slightly. Kel watched him. For a moment, something passed across his alien face. Surprise, maybe. Or relief. He took the document next. He read it. He signed it. His signature was a series of symbols that glowed briefly before fading into the paper. It is done, Taiho said. The war is over. Later, when the leaders had gone, Elder Tova came to see Captain Taiho. She was weaker now. Her species was dying. She would not live to see what came next. But she had come to say one thing. Do you understand what you have done? She asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. We ended the war, Taiho replied. Tova shook her head slowly. You have not brought peace. You have brought order. There is a difference. Taiho was quiet. He knew what she meant. Peace comes from understanding, Tova continued. From forgiveness. From choice. What you have given them is not peace. It is fear. They stopped fighting because they were afraid of you, not because they learned to stop hating each other. I know, Taiho said. But fear keeps people alive long enough to learn. Maybe their grandchildren will find real peace. Maybe their great-grandchildren. We gave them time. That is all we could give. Tova studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, a strange expression on her alien face. You humans are very young. But you are wise in the way that young things sometimes are. You see clearly because you have not yet learned to look away. She turned and walked slowly toward the door. At the threshold, she paused. Protect them, she said. Protect them from each other. And protect them from themselves. That is your burden now. And she was gone. 6 months later, Lieutenant Hannah walked through a market on Karos 4. The planet had been a war zone for centuries. Now it was something else. The streets were crowded. Velen and Orin walked past each other. They did not speak. They did not smile. But they also did not fight. They simply existed, side by side, in the same space. Sergeant Minji found her near a food stall. They stood together, watching the crowd. Is this what victory looks like? Minji asked. Hannah watched a young Velen child examining a toy at a vendor's table. It was a small figure made of metal. A human soldier? The child turned it over in her many hands, curious about this strange shape. Above them, in the sky, human warships drifted in silent orbit. Their weapons were cold but ready. Their presence was a constant reminder of what would happen if the fighting started again. It is not victory, Hannah said. It is what comes after. The hard part? They still hate each other. Yes, they will for a long time. Maybe forever. Hannah turned to look at her friend. But their children are playing in the same streets. Their merchants are selling in the same markets. Every day that passes without war is a day closer to something better. Minji nodded slowly. Do you think it will last? Hannah did not answer. She watched the child put down the metal soldier and pick up something else. A crystal flower, Velen made. Beautiful and strange. The child held it up to the light and smiled. It has to, Hannah finally said. Because the alternative is fire. And there has been enough fire. The market continued around them, two species learning to exist together. Above them, humanity watched. Humanity waited. Humanity hoped the war was over. The peace had begun. It was fragile and imperfect and built on fear. But it was real, and sometimes that was enough.